Joining us now, Scott Weldon, GOP political consultant. Let me tell you some of the races that he won. He won the Frank Wagner over McCollum state Senate race, and let's see, that was 2015. And he won by 10 points, although being outspent by McCollum, 3-1. And then he turned around and he engineered the big upset primary victory in the 2nd District, Scott Taylor over Randy Forbes, when he was outspent 10-1. And he won that race. And many others that he's won that I can't even go. I can go far back to Glenn Davis and everything else. But he's joining us now to kind of break things down in Virginia. Scott Weldon, thanks for being with us, man.
John, happy to be here.
You know what? I'm amazed that you got a lot of consultants in Virginia that don't win races and they keep getting hired. And then you got a guy in Virginia like you that all you do is win races. And I'm not sure where everybody's not beating your door.
John, I can't answer that, but,
It's an odd business you're in. It's an odd business you're in. The people that lose make more money than the people that win. It's kind of reverse capitalism for Republican consultants. And there's a bunch of them that haven't won a race in years. And you look at them and they're the general consultants for these campaigns. It amazes me. Okay. That's just my narrative. Wow. Lots to talk about. I want to get your take because I know you're not involved in any of these. So I'm going to unbiased opinion here. Let's go to the 97th district, this nominating debacle between Scott Wyatt the Rigger and Chris Peace and all the Riggers and Jack Wilson. I mean, who would have ever thought this, right? Like Whitback, John Whitback, chairman of the Republican Party, and Mullins before that, all good people, but they were very reluctant to criticize any of the conventioneers and any of the, they just, go with the flow. And of course, Whitback, and he would have to call Ken Cuccinelli up and ask him if everything was okay, right? We all went through that. But then I got this guy, Jack Wilson, right? Little country lawyer from Suffolk. And he calls this the most corrupt nominating process in the history of the Republican Party of Virginia. What do you make of this, Scott Weldon?
It was all the way around weird. I have no idea why things went down the way they did. I think that once you kind of undermine the will of the population that's voting for you, especially in our base, you're undermining the electorate. You're undermining the election process. And I think that was absolutely something that they could have gone without doing. I think if you can win on your own merits, you should do that. And you should win no matter what the nomination process is. So my 2 cents on that is, I think that we should have done that a little bit better. I think we could have done that a little bit better. And I think everybody on both sides would probably agree with that.
Yeah, well, it's a mess. I don't know. How do you think it turns out now?
I drove through New Kent and Hanover, and I saw a lot of Wyatt signs. I saw a lot of, a lot of support for him. But that doesn't mean that Peace and those guys down there don't have their base of support where they can really drive it home. I think that it's going to be a hard one for Peace to get through. I do.
Well, I tell you what, is there going to, I don't even know if there's supposed to be a firehouse primary June 1. I'm not even sure if there is or not. I've kind of stopped covering it because it's just that the whole thing is so dumb. Every day I get emails from both sides telling me what the other side did is illegal. So I don't know what is going to happen. So we'll keep following it and see what happens. But look, at the end of the day, Wyatt rigged it. And so I think that the problem with Wyatt, the whole Wyatt effort, is the thing got rigged from day one, and that has really tarnished the whole thing. So I don't know if State Central's going to figure it out, but whatever it is, it's a mess. All right, let's get to Frank Wagner's old seat. You ran 2 of Wagner's campaigns, both successful. Veteran Navy pilot Jen Kiggins running for Wagner's seat against the favorite there, Carolyn Weems, a member of the school board. I have Weems as the favorite for one big reason, name ID. She's been on the ballot 9 times in that district, running for the school board, or 7 times, I think 8 times. She's 8 for 8. How do you see that nominating race?
I think Carolyn will win. I think it'll be probably a little bit closer than people would have anticipated. I think Jen would make a great candidate for any office down the line. I think she should stay involved. I think she should continue to stay engaged with the Republican Party in Virginia Beach. And, I know that can be difficult sometimes, but, I think she's got the background for it, and I think she could make a great candidate, and I think she's doing well in this election. I know it's gotten a little testy down there right now, but it's a primary. That's what happens. But I do think Carolyn will win. I think it'll be, a pretty decently close race, but I think Carolyn will walk away with it. She's a great candidate. She's done a lot of great work in the community, and I think she's the right person for the job.
So you kind of have the same view I have. I think Keegan seems like she might be a good candidate, but I just don't know how you overcome the level of name ID that Weems has. And I think Weems is going to have a little bit of tougher time in the general holding that seat, but I'm with you there. I think Weems wins. You can't run 8 elections and be on the ballot in the district 8 times and not get some benefit from that in a primary.
Sure.
So I think she wins that. I've not had Jen Kiggins on my show. I'm going to try to do that in the next week or so, along with Carolyn Weems, school board member. All right. Now, if Weems does win, as we're predicting, is that a seat the Republicans can hold? Likely Democratic candidate, state Senate, Cheryl Turpin.
Sure. I mean, and there's a primary going on there with Kim Howard, I think, and Susan Hippen, I think, are still in that race. So get through the primary. I think Cheryl will do that. But I think that there's definitely the district is demographically shifting. It's the Democrats have really made a focus on some of these areas in Virginia Beach that have really paid dividends for them with their absentee drives and with their turnout over the last couple of years, and it's worked for them. So I do think it's going to be a really tough race, but we're also in an off year election. So I think turnout is going to be a little bit different, but I do think that it's going to be probably one of the races to watch this year. I mean, it's going to be a close race, and I do think Carolyn's got it. She's done great work. She's done a lot of work in the community, and if she's the nominee, I think she'll be able to be right there as competitive with anybody else and get as close to being the choice for anybody. I mean, she can do it. I think that's going to be a great race between Cheryl and Carolyn, and I definitely think that's going to be absolutely the race to watch this year.
What do you think about, let's get to Richmond, Garrison Coward, African-American millennial, running for the House of Delegates. That seat right now held by Dawn Adams. He's got a challenger there. Much to my chagrin, and I told this to Garrison, I don't play identity politics, but there's 51 Republican House of Delegates members in the General Assembly and 21 senators. That's 72 representatives, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not one of them is African American. And there's only one millennial, and that's Emily Brewer in Suffolk. Don't you think it's time that changes a bit, Scott?
I mean, our party has to be representative of the community. Our party can't be the old stagnant kind of view that people have of us in general. I think it drives the narrative that people see, especially with younger voters and people out there. And I think Garrison could absolutely help bridge that divide. I know he's having a little bit of trouble fundraising. So people, if you're listening, go give money to his campaign, help him out a little bit. That's definitely a race that I've known Garrison. We both were political director for Congressman Whitman at one point in time. So I know that he's got the gumption for it, and I know he would be a great person to be representing his district in the General Assembly, and he'd be great for our party to have because he's the next generation. He's our future, I think, in the party, and I think we need to keep people and younger voters engaged with candidates like that.
You think you can win that race?
I absolutely do. Absolutely.
All right, let's go to the Democratic side. Big race in the 16th district. That's the Petersburg area. This is a Democratic seat. Republicans, I don't even think they're fielding a candidate. If they did, they'd get 25%. Joe Morrissey trying to knock off a long-term incumbent, former Petersburg mayor, House of Delegates member Rosalind Dance. On paper, no way Dance should lose this race, right? Morrissey, sure. All kinds of issues in the past, and been disbarred twice, and had been fights, and went to jail. One is an independent while behind bars. He's got all kinds of issues. Dance, former mayor of Petersburg, former House of Delegates member, works across the aisle, doesn't have a lot of enemies, really nice lady, has more money, can't lose, right? Or wrong?
Well, they don't call him Fighting Joe for no reason, right? I would never count Joe Morrissey out. I mean, he's proven himself to be a survivor. He's proven himself to be, just somebody who continues to stay engaged and involved, and people like that. I think his district is like that. I mean, I think yes, he's had his ups and downs. That's definitely for sure. But I would absolutely keep an eye on that one. I think that could be definitely one that catches some people by surprise.
All right, so let's. We both made a prediction in District 7, right? Senate District 7. We both picked Weems, and we both picked Garrison Cowart to win his race. Let's get to District 16, Democratic primary. Who wins, Dance or Morrissey?
I think conventional wisdom would say Dance, but I'm going to hedge on this one and just tell you that I'm never counting Fighting Joe out. And I think that's going to be that's a political answer, but I definitely think that's one to watch.
Morrissey wins. All right, let's get to that's my prediction. Look, you know what? Money can't buy love. Dance has got more money, and she's got the establishment Democrats behind her. They like to be the elites and pick their nominees. They're worse than the Republicans are. The Republicans rig conventions. The Democratic elite just picks their nominees. I mean, both of them are bad, but at least the Democrats' way is not as messy until somebody like Joe shows up and decides to challenge it. So we'll have to see how it goes. I think he wins. All right, let's get to Fredericksburg. Paul Milde lost last cycle to Bob Thomas, who was backed by former Speaker Bill Howe. That was his old seat. I think he won by 200 or 300 votes. Now, Milde challenging Bob Thomas again, outspending him. Bob Thomas being attacked by the liberals for being pro-life. He came on my show and said he would vote for the Georgia bill, and that put all the national people in a tizzy. Thomas in a tight race with Milde, who spent, when I looked at his disclosure, $25,000 on Fox News TV, wire advertising on TV for a House of Delegates primaries beyond me. But it just says to me, obviously, they got money to burn. Who wins that race? In my 6-hour drive back from Virginia Beach last night, I took a detour through Fredericksburg, and I like to check out some of the competitive districts, kind of see how they're playing out. I absolutely would say Milde has a lot of energy on his side right now. I think that there's definitely, but Bob Thomas he's a great candidate, but I think that Milde is going to absolutely kind of sneak in there. I think it's going to be a close one. I think Milde kind of walks away with it by a little bit, kind of like Thomas did last time. All right, so you predict Milde, I predict Thomas. So that's one that we can see who wins on. There's 3 primaries in Northern Virginia on the Democratic side. Saslow being challenged, the minority leader, Barbara Favola, being challenged. And do you see a race in either of those?
I think Barbara's going to walk away with it. I know her campaign manager pretty well. I know he's a good guy, and I know they're working hard, and I think they feel really good about it. I think, as much as different as we are politically, I think Barbara's kind of a good person. I've had a glass of wine with her several times, but the Saslow one is going to be interesting. That's kind of the real divide in the Democrat Party right now, and kind of seeing how that shapes up. I do think Saslow will probably still win, but it's definitely kind of you're seeing that national divide take out some of its aggression in some of these local races, and that's one that you're definitely going to see. It's going to be closer than people think, but I do think Saslow has done he's been there for forever. People know him, people trust him, and I think that's going to be the Saslow win. And
he's out working. I mean, that's the other thing, is out knocking on doors. That's why I think Kirk Cox is going to get reelected, even though his district is flipped over to about even now, right? It was R+5 or something. It's even. And so a lot of people think he's at risk. But, when you go out there and you're in the leadership and you knock on doors every single weekend and you meet thousands of people, I mean, it's really tough to get unseated. And I think Saslow, as old as he is, he'll get out there and knock on doors and talk to people. Sure. So I think he wins. But Northern Virginia for the Democrats is interesting because you have this surge of activists coming through the party trying to determine where the soul of the Democratic Party goes. But Northern Virginia, I mean, if you look at the majority of those Democrats, they're pro-business. They're pro-business moderates like Saslow, pro-business, Janet Howell, pro-business. Barbara Favola, pro-business, David Morrison, pro-business, Chad Peterson, pro-business, and even Scott Servo, very liberal on the social issues, very pro-business. So you really have to get down to like Adam Eben, who is not anti-business. He's just maybe a little bit more liberal. But the entire Democratic Senate in Northern Virginia is all pro-business moderates, and none of them are even at risk. So I was talking to Ben Tripp the other day. Like, I mean, is that why Biden's ahead? Because at the end of the day, Democrats that actually show up for these things are not on social media? Or what do you think?
I think it's you've kind of had this outrage mob kind of building up over the last few years, driven by some of this anti-Trump, movement, and I think that's driven some of the base to move further left. I do think that there's been power in that, and I definitely think that that's driven the Democrat Party away from kind of some of their roots, and I think it's given some of the establishment a scare. But I do think that ultimately, people like to vote on their pocketbooks. They like to vote on, making sure that instability sometimes. And I think those candidates offer that. And, I think if we take too far of a shift, I think it scares people. But I do think the base of the Democrat Party has moved a little bit faster than I think a lot of people may have wanted.
All right, man. I got to take off, but I just got one other question. Who is going to be the nominee in the 2nd district for the Republicans to take on Elaine Laurie in 2020?
I know that there have been a couple people that have kind of talked about it. I know it's still entertaining running again. I know he's probably got his eyes set on some other things. So, it's to be determined. I think you've got to have somebody who can have a little bit of crossover appeal. You've got to have somebody who's engaging and not the old stagnant kind of candidates that we've thrown out there in the past. So I absolutely think that if we, it's a seat we can win back. It's a seat that if we do it right, you'll see a pickup there. But we've got to find somebody who's engaging. There's some people out there that I may have even talked about today that might be a good candidate for that.
Stolley is my response. Ken Stolley. John, any Stolley. John Fredericks Radio Network. Stolley should run, right? If Stolley runs, he wins. You get the seat. I love the Stolley,
so I can't say anything bad about him. So yeah,
Stolley wins. He's got the name. He runs, he wins. It's simple. Or if we could move his sister Siobhan Donovan there, run her, she'd win. In fact, she'd win no matter where she ran. I got to go. Great. John Fredericks Radio Network. Scotty Weldon, thanks for being with us, man.